Hello and welcome to ScotDance USA's World Champion Dancers and Teachers interview series. I'm Emma Schiff. The Professional Development Committee at ScotDance USA wants to help the Highland dancing world stay motivated during these challenging times. That's why we're talking to the best of the best, World Champion dancers and their teachers. We'll learn about how they achieved what they did, plus their advice for dancers and teachers struggling during quarantine. We hope these videos can bring you inspiration. Enjoy. Today, I'm interviewing seven-time world champion David Wilton and his mom and teacher, Delma Wilson. Thank you both so much for joining us. Delma, you have coached 5 world champions. What do you think it is about your teaching that is able to produce champion after champion after champion?
I'm not too sure, to tell you the truth. I think maybe a little bit of luck. I think I have kids who are also talented and dedicated, and I think they were quite easy to teach. And so I think, sometimes I get a little bit lucky every now and again, I think. I think I can be quite strict, and, they have to perform, and improve and practice.
David, from your perspective, do you think there is something that Delma does differently that makes her dancers so successful?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't really had many lessons from anyone else, so I'm not sure if there's anything different. But it's there's just a lot of repetition, making sure that it's not good enough to really get it once right. It's about getting it right until you can't get it wrong, basically. So taking all that time to just really get the basics ground in at a young age, and I think that's the difference. When the ones that are really successful have been there from a young age, that have had all that work, I think, and are able to continue on, progressing, and I think also the understanding that nothing's permanent. So you might have fixed it one time or whatever, but you grow as your body grows, everything changes. As it's an interesting art form with kids having to do the same thing as the adults, and but you as a person change throughout that whole process. So I think understanding that along the road has helped in not taking your current state of affairs for granted, really.
Delma, what do you focus on the most when you're teaching, whether it be timing, turnout, pointed toes? Is there something for you that you really like to focus on?
Well, it was funny today because I was teaching on Zoom, and so I wanted my kids' perspective on what I actually did, because I think sometimes differently from how they take it on. And so I think in a class, I probably work an awful lot on stamina, because I think that's a hard thing to work on by yourself. You need to be very motivated. We do an awful lot of work on the sword, again, because it's a really rotten dance. But they were also saying that I spent quite a bit of time on their corrections. So I didn't just send them away and say, okay, this has got to be fixed. We would be working on how to fix it. Or we might have somebody in the class who's doing that particular movement better than the rest, and then she would show, or he would show, what they were doing. I don't know if I do this differently, but I do spend a lot of time on musicality, as opposed to just getting everything right. It's always about how to interpret the music and how long you should really hold an extension. Now, obviously, this is when the kids are right up there. That's not how you're starting your little tiny tots with putting the car in the garage, So, yeah, I think that's what I spend time with them, going over different things as well.
You bring up a really good point about stamina, because that is something that's very hard to work on. How do you work on stamina?
Well, just put the music on. Yeah, there was something interesting actually on Facebook where they were saying that I used to make them, and in the olden days, do 8-step flings and everything. And I'm thinking, I don't think I did that. And they were all quite convinced that I did. And so I guess I did. But what David and I did, sometimes we have different themes for a year that we might try something different. In 1 year, it might be just really working hard on keeping your supporting heels higher. Another year, it might be just, let's do the quick time of the sword, like for 6 steps, until you're really building up your muscles, and it's your quick time muscles that you are doing, you know, so it's not like doing the quick time a couple times and then, yeah, that's easy. Or doing it by itself is really easy. It's like doing it over and over again until you're really, you can't do it anymore. Your legs are done. Yeah, so I'm a bit brutal, I guess. I think I've mellowed with age, but yeah, I don't know. David would probably be better to know on that one.
So, well, David, what did your practice routine look like?
It definitely changed with what was needing to be worked on or whatever else. You know, we'd always section our year off. So I wasn't doing the same practice in October that I would be doing in August. So basically, you know, when the new steps would come in, we'd look at them, but we'd primarily do that on the chair or just talk through them or something. I mean, it's easier living in the same house as your teacher, so you can kind of pick a time that's suitable, but we didn't really focus on it in the house, but it was easier to get together, and it wasn't so crucial that we talk about it and then get some dancing done. So it was good that we could maybe plan it a little bit better, but we always had sort of a major project like my mum had mentioned, and then, you know, little things that cropped up, you know, on top of that. So really throughout the year it changed. So I guess in the winter section I would be more focused on technique, and then, you know, come after Christmas time, our championship season starts kind of mid to late March, so we would be really focused on trying to get that good technique into stamina. But I was fortunate enough that I didn't really have to work on stamina too much. I would be able to cope pretty well with doing 2 full dances and working on the other 2, and then we would just alternate that on each day. So, you know, say flinging chartreuse, sword and reel, and just kind of alternate those dances week on week, or day on day, sorry. And then that usually saw me through stamina on the day with adrenaline. You also get more rest in, you know, in a championship than you would in a practice. So I think that was really it. I would say when it was up and running, it was the, you know, 2 dances, work on the other 2 technically, and then switch. And that was kind of the way I like to work best. I was pretty hard to motivate, so it was that was my incentive, and I didn't have to do all 4 dances. That was good.
So Delma, did you always practice with David?
Yes. Yeah, I would say I did. I think David tried to practice himself, and there's just some kids that can do that, and there's just some kids that can't. And I remember as a dancer, I couldn't. I had to have someone watching me or telling me. But when David was young, as he said earlier, an awful lot of the work was done from 7 till 12 years of age. What would happen in high school, that I remember anyway, is I would pick him up from school. He would have a lesson like right away, and that gave him the whole night free to do whatever he had to do, because he was also involved in piping and karate, and he was involved in a lot of things. So that kind of freed up his time, because it was just done and dusted.
So obviously not every parent is also a qualified dance teacher, but do you like your dance students' parents to be involved in practicing and make sure that they're working on the corrections you give them, or do you not want them there?
No, I'm a definite triangle type of person, where I really need the parents to be there, knowing what I'm working on. They sit in, and most of the parents really want to, you know, and especially I can't think of any of my dancers that have been really successful that haven't had a parent involved. It doesn't happen too often, you know, that you get a dancer that's super motivated and just can kind of take themselves. So I would say that, yeah, I like the parents involved.
Yeah, I agree. So what did your training with dancers look like going into Cowell? What would a week of lessons and practices look like maybe in July or August?
I don't think we went at it brutally hard. Like I'm kind of a bit of a split personality here, because when I was bringing dancers from Canada to Scotland, I knew the different style. And so probably we would have the Canadians, we'd work really hard for the Canadians, they'd probably get a week off after the Canadians, and then we would start in, and then what I really focused on then was total technique and turning out. Because as you know, in Scotland, the judges are closer and the kids just, they don't have to have that platform, up in the platform look that the Americans and Canadians have. And so I knew they would have that anyway, because that's what they had to do for the Canadians. But when they came over for Cowell, it was really down to the technique and just pushing your heels that extra quarter inch, you know, just try and make it more turned out. So I don't think the week of Cowell, we probably didn't do very much at all. We would be doing maybe chair practices or maybe going over a couple of things, because what's going to change in a couple of days? It's not. You really want to have your legs nice and rested.
Let's talk a bit more about Cowell. David, was there a specific moment for you when you decided your goal was to win the Worlds?
I don't know if it was ever really, I mean, it became the big goal eventually, you know, once you've won it. I don't know, I was second a few times when I was kind of young. I don't know, the goals changed. So when I was 12, I guess I won. I know I didn't win Cowell that year, but I won, I qualified, and I think I just really, really wanted to place in the top 6. I mean, that was for a 12-year-old, and I was quite a small, sort of young, scrawny little 12-year-old. So it wasn't really within my grasp to kind of take the stage and present. So I just really wanted to impress, and I really enjoyed that that year. I remember it was great, and I mean, I always enjoyed Cowell, but it changed as I got older. And then the next year I was second, and I was 13, and I just thought, okay, well, that's a nice little progression. Let's try and win it. But I guess, to me, I always really wanted to just make sure that I was well prepared, that I didn't blow it or throw it away or do something silly that might take me out of the running. I guess the consistency would be the key for that. So really just it was probably around about that age, 13, when you think you can do it, there's no point thinking about it when you're 7 and 8, when you're doing well, but it's not like I'm going to win the Worlds at that point. It's just, I guess, when you're getting closer and you're consistently doing well in championships and winning a few, and it's like, well, I guess the Worlds is no different than any other championship, and if I can win one, I can win that one.
And Delma, was there a specific moment for you when you realized he had a good shot at winning?
I did, and that was kind of around about the same age. I kind of saw him like progressing, and he was winning all the Scottish championships from the age of 7. So, you know, he's like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and he's right. He didn't win when he was 12, and he won 13, 14, 15. You know, so when you win that, you got a good shot. But he was a perfectionist himself. He really wanted everything to be in the right spot. And I noticed that right away when he was 5. You know, it was part of his nature at that stage. You know, things change as you get older and everything, but at that stage, that's why I say the most work we probably did was from between 7 to 12 years of age, and then just kept, as you grow, you know how you end up, like some kids are just inundated with injuries, and he was not inundated, but he was pretty lucky in lots of ways, I think, because, you know, people think that they look at him, they think he had like natural turnout, natural this, and he just really worked very, very hard. He wasn't a natural, I would say. We changed his routine a lot when he was 15, because this was the last shot now of winning the juveniles, you know, so we changed his routine. We started doing plyometrics. My friend Bill Weaver was really big on plyometrics, and I thought, yeah, I like that idea. I used to always kind of say to the kids to have like a reflex action, but I didn't actually have a word. And then David also went to the gym when he was 15. You know, so we kind of trained a bit differently, and David maybe has more memory on that than I do. But
when I was 14, Bill judged me, gave me second, and I think it was just like, okay, great. What did you think was missing? And then he just said, you know, just not strong enough for a boy. So I think that was basically the turning point. And he said that I could help, and that was the massive turning point in my dancing, because that just gave me the extra strength. So he gave me the program that he has out there now. That was based on us, me, I guess, and that was basically a 6-week program, as is exactly the one that he sells in a book and the DVD, and it's the exact program I did, and nothing deviated from that, and basically allowed me to get more explosive, more strength. And then from there, it really just lasted. It stayed. I mean, like my mum mentioned, I wasn't really blessed with many natural gifts when it came to what I needed to do for dancing. I didn't have a straight leg, and I wasn't turned out, and my feet weren't the most pointy, and I wasn't very strong, so there wasn't much there, but chipping away at these things, it really happened. So I was used to having to straighten my leg to the maximum in order to get a straight leg, or even a slightly bent leg. I had to straighten, so to work really hard on that. So I think once that program hit in place, and I got the strength and flexibility and just a little bit more of everything, it just really all started to click. And then that's when I really didn't look back. I think that was when it all started to really motor on.
So that was when you were 15. You came second, you said, when you were 13. What happened when you were 14? Were you second again?
I was second again at 14. So yeah, like obviously maybe people remember, maybe people don't, but Marielle and I had this really great sort of rivalry. We were great. We are, great friends. I used to go over to Canada quite a lot and compete, and that was really where a lot of the competitors that I obviously wasn't able to compete against, many of them, and there's some really great dancers in there, and it kind of changed a bit about who was the main sort of person to look out for. But I remember Anne Thompson being one of the dancers that was just really winning in Canada. So to try and win over there and beat her was probably a goal for a while. And then Marielle seemed to take over that. And so it was just to and fro. I always tried to be there so that I was one of the people that was considered at the top. And then you just, I don't know, you try and work on your weaknesses and maintain your strengths, I guess. And so from, I think that year when I was 14 was the year he judged, and I think that year I was second in the Worlds, and I was kind of a blow because I'd been second year before, so I was a bit like, oh man, that was kind of I was a little bit gutted about that one, to be honest, and nothing to do with just you're young and you don't quite take all these things in. So looking back on now, it's not a big deal at all, but at the time it was a big goal that I didn't quite reach. And to be honest, up to that point I had reached most of my goals that I had set. So I think the big one was to try and to win that, and then it just didn't quite happen. So there was a big wake up call to do something different, and then that basically was where it went from. I changed our ways, and then after that we kind of went back to just what we did normally again, and once I gained that strength, it stayed and kind of continued along that path, I think.
Clearly you worked very hard after coming second when you were 14 until 15, because as Delma said, that was the last shot to win the juveniles. What was that moment like when they called your name as world champion?
A little bit of a relief, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I would like to give the proper answer and say I was just so delighted, and it wasn't really delight. It was like, okay, I did it. And it took a while for it to sink in. Obviously, I mean, these things, everyone reacts differently. I was never really an outwardly emotional sort of person, not really either right now. So it's not like I don't know if people were expecting more of a reaction or not, but I was pretty just like, oh, there's like a big weight off my shoulders, because it had been a lot of work. But I mean, it's not to say that I worked harder when I was 14 going into 15 in that season, the off season. I just worked differently. It was different. We always practiced a lot, and technique was never really the issue. I guess it was just that overall, presence that changed, and that came from having more strength. And then it was easier to do things, but I think it maybe just elevated my intensity, I guess, and then we just continued on from there. But yeah, I'm more relief than anything else. Sorry.
Delma, what was that moment like for you?
Oh, well, more exciting than it was for David, I guess. No, I was absolutely over the moon, because it was something. We had a little, what's the word, superstition, because my oldest daughter was runner-up in the Worlds when she was 15, Rochelle. And so when David was runner-up when he was 13, and then he was runner-up when he was 14, we kind of had a bit of a laugh and said, maybe we're just not going to be that family that wins the world. Maybe we're just going to be second. So we had that in our minds, but no, it was very, very exciting. He got it with 4 firsts. So it wasn't like,
wow.
I don't remember that one. But
see, I do, because I can remember that it got to the Chanteuse and I didn't care what you got in the reel. You know, it's like that type of a thing where you're just like, oh, he's won it, okay, you know. Where there's been other years where all of a sudden I can't even total, you know, at the time it was 88 and 56 or whatever, and I was like, I couldn't even total everything up quick enough, you know, and I'm like, I don't know. And if you look at it, it was obvious that he had won it, but when you're sharing first, it was like, oh, I don't know if he's got that or not.
David, you mentioned earlier, and this happens to every dancer, you set a goal, you don't always achieve that goal. You go to a competition, not every competition is going to be your best. You're going to have one where you either don't dance as well as you hoped and you don't do well, or you think you dance well and you still don't do well. Delma, how do you help dancers overcome that and not, you know, get down from that and keep working towards their goals?
Probably because I'm just not a negative person. So it happened, and yeah, it happened. Okay, it's done. There's nothing you can do. There's no sense dwelling on it. So that's what's happened, and we just carry on. And you know, yeah, I'm positive about the fact that, you know, okay, it wasn't your time, or, you know, great believer in fate, and let's just keep working hard, you know, and yeah, it just wasn't for you this time. You know, you end up being like so much more than just a dance teacher. You know, so you're a bit of a psychologist, and sometimes you're their mom. And I remember with Carly Layton, the first time she won the Canadians, I had tied her shoelaces. And so every Canadian was like, you need to tie my shoes, you know, so it's cute as well, you know, where, you know, you end up kind of being a bit of a mom as well, and, you know, kind of take the kids close to you. Mm-hmm. I do anyway.
David, you said it was a relief that first time you won, but did it also add pressure? And then every win after that, did you feel more and more pressure building up?
I probably did, but I didn't really focus on the pressure, because I guess that was what, you know, made me less complacent. I think just making sure that I didn't screw it up for myself again, or do something silly. So I think, yeah, pressure, but I didn't really have that pressure on the day because I'd prepared enough most of the time. There's a couple of worlds where I was a bit underprepared, and then, you know, sometimes it was okay, sometimes it wasn't. So it was just, I think, I always just really tried to focus on being the best I could be, and having prepared enough so that the pressure then had taken it off myself. And I always tried to play it down in my head, like, obviously, for me, big time, I just tried to be the underdog, going in my own brain somehow to just, which maybe people might not believe, but I did. There was always a reason. You know, Mum mentioned earlier that I wasn't really that injured, but I always seemed to get some sort of niggle in August, and so in my head I was kind of battling stuff. I mean, I remember there was one year I had compartment syndrome.
Compartment syndrome, yeah.
And we had to, instead of, I wasn't really allowed to warm up. I was told from my podiatrist, actually, who was like a hero, saying, like, you know, if you warm up, you're going to basically burn yourself out because your muscle's going to be too tired. The lactic acid has nowhere to go. So what you need to do is get ice packs, and after you've danced, put an ice pack on each quad, front and back, and calves. So I had about 6 ice packs in between dances, didn't warm up, and kind of had to go on and dance. I can't remember if that was the year.
That was the year you lost.
Did I lose that year?
Yeah.
Did I? Okay, well.
Yeah. See,
Mom's got more details than me, because to be honest, a lot of it's a blur, because it was just kind of happened. It just rolled on every year, just came around again, and you just worked hard and you tried to perfect and be as close to perfect as you can make it. And yeah, I think that kept me away from the idea that I have to win. It wasn't really about that. It was kind of just, I have to dance amazing, and then that was basically the goal. And then dancing amazing, I could control to a certain extent with preparation and mindset. And I think, that was really it. I didn't ever really feel the pressure of winning after I had won it, if that makes sense. I think the goal was to try and win it. I mean, I did, once I won at 15, I did really want to win all 3 trophies. That was kind of a big deal in my brain. So then I won when I was 16, so that took that off. So 17 was quite fun. And then 18 is like, who wins when they're 18 anyway? So if that happened, that would be great. So here's the sort of things that I would be taking the pressure off myself with, 16, I'm not expected to win because I'm 16 and I'm the younger age group. So somehow I won that year, and then that took the pressure off. 17, because I'd already won it, I got my name on the trophy. And then 18, I was young, I was the youngest coming in, so to win at 18 was like a bonus. And then after that, it was like maybe a bit more pressure, but again, like I said, tackling it in a roundabout way to try and take that pressure off yourself, I think was what worked for me. But some people might be different than that, but for me,
so you didn't really suffer from nerves so much.
I was nervous, but I wasn't like nervous about messing up. I was just nervous, like I was just geared up. I don't think I was nervous and all the negative thought nervous coming in. I wasn't like a deer in headlights sort of person nervous. I used the nerves for adrenaline, and then that just helps in dancing.
Delma, did you get nervous watching David dance?
Definitely. But as he got older, it was funny, I didn't get as nervous. I mean, every teacher and mom, when the kids are going up and doing the sword dance, you're lifting your leg and you're leaning back as they get a little bit close and everything. But I think when he was younger, I'd get nervous about the sword, but not when he was older, because he just seemed to be in the center of the squares, and he just didn't seem to lose his balance, so I could kind of sit back. I always had to be one of these ones that had to watch it, because there's lots of teachers who they don't watch it, and the mums don't watch it. I was always one of these ones. I thought, no, I need to watch this, because if when the result comes out, I got to see if I agree with it.
I don't think my mom's watched one of my swords in like 5 years.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know, it's like a lot of the mums don't,
David, one of my favorite things to watch in your dancing was your high cuts. To me, they just look very effortless. How did you work on high cuts?
Well, when I was younger, I was really light. I had like really light bones, basically. And I was able to, and I was pretty strong in my calves. And so I was able to get my legs out, I guess. And then I just, once you have done the work to get them out there, it's just maintaining that as you grow and stuff. So obviously a lot of work on trying to get the speed out, not necessarily hopping or anything. And then, because I work on it different, I've been teaching quite a long time now, and I work on it differently than how I did. So I'm kind of trying to just forget the stuff I've been doing the last 10 years. And
well, how do you work on it with your students?
Well, with this, what I try to make sure is that they can hold their leg up as high as they would like their high cut without doing any hops with the muscle. It needs to be the right muscle that holds the leg. People have this idea that you've got to be flexible, and to an extent that's true, but you actually just need the muscles in your thigh to be strong enough to hold your leg up straight. and they also then need the endurance to do it at the end of a dance. So a lot of that comes down to how strong is your muscles. And so obviously, depending on the pupil, you have to tailor what you do to then get the strength into their legs. I really did work on was trying to be as explosive out to the side as I could, and you know, build that from doing it on a chair to doing it without arms to then doing it with arms and then doing it a lot of them. But we didn't really hammer them. It wasn't we didn't go overkill on it, because I think doing that would lead to injuries and different things. So you have to be smart. And I was definitely a dancer who listened to my body, and probably more than mum would have wanted, but I definitely was looking for a way to finish the practice. So if I had a niggle or anything, I would stop right away. And then, but I knew the difference between muscle fatigue and sort of a niggle and a pain. As for high cuts, yeah, just trying to build up the muscle strength that's going to hold your leg there. So a lot of static holds, and obviously going higher than you need to go when you're standing still is ideal, because you've got another leg to go out with you, and just having the strength to hold your leg there for a long time, just being able to do it, and with turnout and all these other things. So because when you get tired, all these muscles that you need to dance deplete massively, and then all of a sudden turning in and rolling and all that comes into play. And I think people don't realize that, like, the last kind of 2 steps of each dance is not about necessarily good technique. It's about how well your muscles are coping with the extra strain of being tired. And so when I did dance in the house, I always pushed maximum from the start, and that was how I built my stamina and contributed to being strong enough to do high cuts, I guess. Was that you just didn't matter if you fell apart in the last step, you were still maxing yourself out. So it was never ever easy. It never got to the point of cowl being like I could just get to the end of the dance without any, I wasn't tired or anything, because you were always maxing yourself out. So I think the idea that doing that right from the start really has to be instilled in order to get things like high cuts and all that. It's not just going to come from working on it, but then your stamina is so bad that it's not going to happen. So it's getting everything. You need all of it.
Absolutely. That's one thing I always say to my students too, is that, well, I have 2 students, but to those 2, I say, it doesn't matter if you can do like 8 great high cuts, because if you get to the end of the reel and you have to do 16 and you're so tired you can't even extend them, then it doesn't matter. That was something that it took me forever to realize when I was like younger, because I would just practice things. I'd be like, look, I can do a great leap. It's like, can you do it at the end of your chanteuse? Oh, no. So it didn't, well, that doesn't matter. But speaking of teaching, Delma, what advice do you have for teachers that are just starting out?
I would say that has evolved over the years and years that I've been teaching. I mean, I had a dancing school in Winnipeg, first of all, and then I moved to Ontario, and then now over to Scotland. And do you know what? I think you have to listen to the parents, unfortunately, sometimes. So when you do let the parents come in, then they know their kid better than anybody. I feel I really don't have my dancers dance much if they're injured, because I don't see the point. And when David, he just reminded me when he said that he really did listen. And yeah, he's probably right that I probably didn't listen every time. There was lots of times where I did listen, and he'd say, and I've said that to my dancers, especially the ones that are in the adults, you tell me when you're done, because I can keep going. You tell me when you're done. And if David had a little niggle, and then the next day we tried to practice and the niggle was still there, we didn't practice. That doesn't mean we stand and do shedding on a chair, or we didn't stretch or whatever, but we wouldn't go and do and I think that's for some parents, it's not so good.
David, do you have any advice for dancers that are struggling maybe to stay motivated during this time?
Yeah, this is a perfect time to really get to grips with your weaknesses. I mean, this is like, to me, this is a dancer's dream time to really fix something. I mean, this is perfect. There's no pressure. You have all the time in the world to really get something done and fix it. then just chip away at it. Just take each day small steps, and you could probably get 4 or 5 big, massive, game-changing corrections done this year, and then come out next year and blow everyone away. I mean, that would be my mindset on the thing. And you know, also utilize the time to rest and really get to know your body and just what you need to do. Like if you're a stiff sort of person, you know, stretch, do something else than dancing that's going to give you more flexibility. And then if you're not a strong dancer, figure out what you need to do to get strength. There's a lot of great things out there at your fingertips. It's all online, it's there, and it's not even Highland dancing based. We don't have a massive resource of all these things, but we're getting better with all that. So use everything you've got at your fingertips to just improve. And if it's a mental thing, read some books about it, go see someone about it. Just do something that you can actually go, well, this was great time spent. And for me, it would be the perfect opportunity to really just overhaul and fix something that was bugging you and bugging other people, you know, that are watching you too. So don't even think about not having any competitions to keep you motivated, because actually the motivation should be getting better, not just competing. So yeah, perfect opportunity.
Yeah,
that's a great answer. The last question I wanted to ask is, both of you, what is your fondest memory from Highland dancing? Doesn't necessarily have to be competitive. David, let's start with you.
Pass to Delma.
I know what his best memory is, when we decided it was his last year.
That was big. I enjoyed that. That was good.
That was good.
I had enough. I had given quite a lot of time and effort to it, and I was just ready to take a back seat. My mum loves Jackie Smith more than anyone. I think Jackie Smith winning the world was probably her biggest thing. It was such a monumental time. I've heard all about it. No offense, Jackie, great, but Mum loves you. Probably
You thought Jackie
hearing all the
was
stories.
your sister.
I know.
When he was little.
Yeah.
Jackie came and lived with us for a little while, and David actually thought Jackie was our sister because she was just in the house for a while.
I was really convinced. Yeah, I was convinced that she was my sister. You're so young. You're going through the whole thing when you're so young. I mean, kudos to Marielle for keeping on going. I mean, I can't believe it. It's great. It's amazing. But I mean, I stopped like 9 years ago, and she's still going. And I just think that has got to take some mental strength to keep going and working hard. And it's not like I didn't love it or anything like that, but I was just so exhausted from all of it. And I think that, yeah, retirement was a big thing. I didn't ever really hang my hat too much on winning, you know, a lot of things. To be honest, it's a great part of growing up and all the experiences you get, and you know, the cliche answer, but it's true, is, you know, the people you meet and where it kind of takes you. I mean, I taught dancing in Brazil, and I just thought, this is kind of crazy, you know, like, what am I doing? And getting flown out to Brazil to teach, and you know, all those things kind of happened for me pretty young, and I was really fortunate. Teaching, I mean, I've always really loved teaching. I've never really been interested in opening my own dance school, actually, but it's mainly because of the time restraints and other things, and I'm kind of focused on piping as well, and that's, you know, my profession now is doing all that. So for me, when you look back on it all, it's really good to you can kind of feel proud of yourself at this point in my life. I feel proud of the work and the effort, and just having that knowledge, and just, you know, gaining expertise in an area that not many people have, and I just think that's cool. I've never been one for the mainstream and doing things exactly how everyone would, or just the normal stuff. So like being an expert in Highland dancing is pretty cool, and then also to pair that with piping and just how that all links into the heritage. It's just, I don't know, it's hard. I think I definitely couldn't put it on one moment. I think the whole thing was just pretty cool.
you know, I'll keep teaching these wee ones, and keep trying to make some good dancers.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us. I think this is a really inspirational conversation for hopefully a lot of dancers and teachers out there.